Carpentry by NJT is based in the western suburbs and has many years of experience to assist you in sourcing any and all of your carpentry needs. Carpentry by NJT are great supporters of local soccer clubs in Melbourne's western suburbs, including ambitious State League One outfit Sydenham Park Soccer Club. Home Builders Corp, meanwhile, is a Melbourne-based construction company by the same owners with more than 15 years' experience. Home Builders Corp specialises in new homes and unit developments. With attention to detail, they work to the highest standard to satisfy their customers with a very quick turnaround. For further details about how either Carpentry by NJT or Home Builders Corp can help you, contact owner-manager Nick on 0410 576 018 or via email at nick@homebuilderscorp.com.au. Carpentry by NJT and Home Builders Corp are the proud major sponsors of the Football Out West show. Good evening, folks, and Sunday night can only mean one thing, and that is time for Football Out West show. My name is TONCI PRUSAC. I'm one of your co-hosts for tonight, and it is episode 119, the 17th episode this year. We are absolutely churning through these episodes at a rapid rate, which certainly means that we are getting closer and closer towards the climactic part of the local football season. And he's going to help me bring all the latest news and views as he does each week. Steve Curtin, a very, very warm welcome to you. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, thanks, Tonchi. Very well, thanks. And good to have your company again tonight. And a really big week it's been. We've had the Australia Cup draw on Wednesday night. We've got the Matilda squad for the World Cup being announced tomorrow. That's going to be massive. The final 23 players that make the cut. There's going to be some disappointed players that don't make it. We've got the Doherty Cup semi-finals have been announced as well. And big weekend of football. It's out with Craig Filer on Friday night, who's not here tonight, but we send our regards.
What did you do to him on Friday night?
I'm just hoping he hasn't passed anything on to myself, actually, because it sounds like he's not doing too well. But we do wish him a speedy recovery for our friend and colleague Craig Filer. And we're out there at St Albans on Friday night. And last night I was at Port Melbourne with Jasper Woodcock. I was joining him for the first time for commentary, and it was a very emotional night, and we must pass on our condolences to everyone at Port Melbourne Sharks on the passing of one of their under-14s players, which is just so tragic. Aidan Leonard, one of the under-14 players who passed away on Friday. His two older brothers fronted up and played in the match in the seniors yesterday. Mark, who's 17 years of age, started and played a best-on-ground performance, helping them to a win. And also the other brother, who is only 15 years of age, Dylan, came on as a sub in central midfield and looked the part as well. So really, really impressive by those two boys to step in, and a real show of solidarity for the family with the Leonards there and all of the under-14 boys there and their friends and family there to mark that what is a really sad occasion, but in the best possible way by a moment of applause before the game. So again, just off the top of the show, just our condolences to everyone at JL Murphy there, and all the kids and all the friends and family as well of Aidan Leonard. It's really tragic news. There's one of our footballing youngsters gone.
That is absolutely tragic. And yes, I know the old famous saying by Bill Shankly, Liverpool great, football is not a matter of life or death. It's more important than that. But moments like this make you realise just how fragile life is and how important life is. But moving along.
Yeah, and moving along, Tonchi, how are you going tonight, and how's your weekend been?
It's been a relatively relaxing one. I didn't have any commentary duties. The community football has a catch-up round all this week, so it's been a bit of a break, so it wasn't too bad. But unfortunately with Craig Craig out of action. We've had to resort to the substitutes bench very, very rapidly this afternoon, during the course of the day. And it's my absolute pleasure to welcome back for another stint in the starting lineup for the Football Out West show, Mark IVKOVIC. Mark, good evening. How are you? And thank you for jumping in and substituting with Craig at the last moment.
Yeah, no worries, guys. Good evening. How you both doing?
Very well, mate, very well. I've had a relatively easy weekend. Steve's had a relatively busy weekend. And how's your weekend with regards to the commentating duties in NPL Victoria?
Yeah, not too bad. I did the pulsating game at Knights Stadium on Friday night, Avondale versus Knights. Just when you thought that rivalry was dead, it was red hot on Friday night. That was a hard stop of that one.
And speaking of which, we will have the coach of the Melbourne Knights, BEN CAHN. He'll be joining us very, very shortly to discuss, amongst other things, the mid-season NPL transfer windows. Correct, the Australia Cup draw, Steve, as you mentioned earlier in the program. The Knights have been drawn against a Queensland NPL side by the name of Lions FC, and who better to ask about Lions FC than BEN CAHN, who last year coached in the Queensland NPL. And we'll also talk about the state of affairs as we make our run towards the final series. But, gents, we're going to take a very, very short break. When we return, it'll be time to, first of all, look at NPL Victoria. But then, folks, today we will be looking at NPL 2, NPL 3 and NPLW as well, with particular focus on the mid-season transfer windows. With Craig's absence, we've decided that the State League analysis or State League review will be held over until next week. So next week, hopefully, Craig will be back with us, and we will also have the State League review happening then. So, folks, don't go away. We'll be back very, very shortly with the NPL Victoria Weekend Roundup.
Welcome to Anytime Fitness in Werribee,
the club with the most supportive, welcoming and friendliest members and staff.
Whether you're a first-timer, gym goer or just an everyday person, we are here for you.
A recently renovated facility offers you everything you need to get started with your health and fitness goals.
Our club offers brand new state-of-the-art cardio equipment, an amazing functional zone for group classes, a lifting zone, and really does cater for every single person. So don't miss out. Come see us in club to redeem this offer.
Welcome back to the Football Out West show. Steve, let's get the ball rolling with the results from the weekend's games.
Yeah, and the big result just in from this afternoon, played at Yarraville. It was South Melbourne 0, Oakley Cannons 2. It was a goal either side of halftime. Defensive midfielder Oliver Kubele, one of the most underrated players in the competition, popularly recognised as that. He scored on 31 minutes in the second half. It was Alex Fickner getting on the score sheet on 56 minutes. It means that the Cannons close within 1 point of second place South Melbourne, albeit South with an extra game in hand. Last night down at George Andrews, it was Altona Magic and the Jonas Markowski show. Jonas scoring a hat-trick. That puts him on 16 goals for the season. He goes 3 clear of his rivals, which include Pierce Waring on 13. And it also means that the Magic keep on the pressure on Green Gully for that spot in that top 6. Also last night, a really, really big result for Hume City. They were 3-2 winners over Moreland. Moreland, a couple of goals for Fletcher Fulton, 2 in 2 minutes for him in 66 and 67. A double for Josh Bingham, and Lazaretti's getting the winner on 84 minutes. And as I mentioned, we were on hand on a moving night where Chris Duggan ended up getting the goal. Pierce Clark had been fantastic between the posts for Heidelberg United after coming back from Perth Glory, but it was in the end, it was his blunder caught in possession by, of all players, a marauding Jalil Brigade stepping out of the defensive line, pressing all the way up the field and winning the ball back. Chris Duggan tapping home on 77 minutes to get the 3 points for Port Melbourne. They keep the pressure on the Melbourne Knights just ahead of them. On Friday night, Green Gully 3-1 over North Geelong. Luke Jego getting himself back on the score sheet on 14 minutes. Then Noel Bernarda and a goal for Addo Kadakpo. Aidan Gardner, the sole scorer for the Warriors. And as I said, I was there with Craig on Friday night, and Bentley pulled themselves out of the relegation mire, at least for the moment. out of that bottom two. And a big shout out to their coach, special shout out to Rick Marchioli if you're watching tonight. But they got the 2-0 win, 2 goals from outside the penalty area, blasted by Scott Hillier on 13 minutes. That was a stunner from the defender, and a man of the match performance by Munib Adus. He scored a nice goal on 73 minutes. And Mark will be able to tell us a bit more about this game, but Luka College capitalising on a mistake by Tom Manos on Manos's return to Knight Stadium, and College scoring on 21 minutes, and then Yusuf Ahmed with a 72nd minute penalty to level things up, so the points were shared at Summer Street.
Yeah, that was a big arm wrestle, that game. It wasn't the greatest night for Tom Manos, but he didn't have too much else to do during the game, to be honest. Thought both sides were extremely done extremely well defensively. There was very limited opportunities throughout the game, but it was just an arm wrestle, and in the last 5 minutes of the game, it kind of exploded a bit, and there was chances left, right, and centre. John Albano probably with the best chance of the game in the 92nd minute. His former teammate Aidan Bryce cleared it off the line, and he missed the rebound. So I think a point was a fair result in the end for both sides.
Well, there we can see some of the footage there from Knight Stadium, courtesy of NPL.TV. And gents, I don't know about you, but see, we've heard we're all involved in commentating NPL games, but we've heard all sorts of bad reports about the NPL app, NPL TV app. But I had a massive nightmare on Friday night with the actual website, the browser, where it just kept cutting out every 3 to 4 minutes, and then you'd have to refresh it. They'd even ask you a question to prove that you're not a human, that you are a human, rather. Look, it's hopefully they do sort this out, because it is a phenomenal. I guess the streaming is great. I know some clubs will complain that, and they'll say that it takes away from some of their attendances. But like, for example, on Friday night, I had like 3 screens open, watching one game on one screen, another on another, and a third on a third. But yeah, I don't know if anyone out.
Yeah, I'd just speak a bit about that too, Tonchi. Craig and I had a pretty frustrating night Friday before last out at Green Gully. We couldn't get any stream going. We had 2 computers, we had phones, we just couldn't get anything to work. I was messaging Mark asking for help on what to do, but I think if you I don't know, perhaps if you're running the Apple or the iPhone platform, maybe you have a bit more luck. But I've literally noticed that the app is bringing up games that took place on this day in 2022 instead of 2023, which is a huge error that needs to be corrected.
Yeah,
we sort of we've been big exponents for how good the NPL TV is, but it probably deserves its criticism that it's copying at the moment in the similar way that Paramount Plus has been copying it from A-League fans left, right, and centre for a long time for not being able to get some fundamentals right. But generally, it's been very good. But and also, I have to say as well, I've mentioned this before, but I really miss the live tweeting of the goal videos after they're scored, because it's a great way for us to be across all of the action, whether we're on the go or at home. And also to that as well, the app and the platform, I was unable to find anywhere on there the game between South and Oakley, which took place only a short time ago, to catch those 2 goals. I was hoping to see them before the show tonight. Wasn't able to.
There you go.
Yeah, well, you didn't miss much with that, because there was no scaffold at McIver Reserve. It was terrible to watch.
I managed to watch it. I don't know, Mark, did you manage to watch it?
No, I could see it, but just the actual way they filmed the game, I don't think it's good enough from Football Victoria to allow South Melbourne to play at a McIver Reserve if they're not going to have adjust the facility to NPL standard. Yeah, it was filmed from the touchline.
Did they film from the grandstand side on the touchline? Was it? Or
they did, yeah.
Yeah, at least I think if it's not, I mean, I think there was some wet weather maybe passing across, but when I was there for the cup game, at least if you go on the other side on the bank, there's a bit of an elevation. At least you get a couple of centimeters of elevation, but that spot in front of the club rooms is a little bit too low. And that room upstairs, which I thought maybe they were going to try and go up there, but I was told by some Yarraville delegates on that night that it's no good to film from there because there's several implements that get in the way. So, yeah, it's not a good spot to get live footage from, and it's important to be able to see the action.
Moving, go on, Mark.
Sorry, they had enough notice to, they knew they were playing at McIver Reserve for a long time.
Yeah.
Surely they, a temporary scaffold there, didn't have to be massive, but just some sort of setup, especially it was a massive game, South Melbourne Open.
Yeah. And there's plenty of room on that hockey pitch side to set something up out there, you would imagine. And that's disappointing, given that there'll be several games being played there in the coming weeks as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree there. All right, gents, let's move along to the ladder now, the competition standings as we see after round 20. Here we go. It's very slow tonight, I tell you what. Avondale, they're on top now, and they've increased their gap at the top to 4 points, but South Melbourne does have that game in hand against Heidelberg United, and I think that is going to be played in August or something like that. I'm not too sure. Don't know when that catch-up round is meant to be. Maybe Brenton Ray can tell us. He knows all the news, and great to see Brenton very active in the comments section, providing a lot of information and news regarding the Australia Cup Matildas as well. But Oakley Cannons, they've certainly closed that gap now to second place South Melbourne. The Knights, they managed to get a point, a very valuable point. Port Melbourne and Green Gully making up the top 6. Then we've got Altona Magic. There's a bit of a gap then before we get to Dandenong Thunder. And yet again, a bit more of a gap that separates the clubs that really are in trouble. And in that category, we put Hume City, Heidelberg United, St Albans Saints, Bentley Greens, and at the moment, North Geelong and Moreland City. And I'll tell you what, gents, that battle for 13th and 14th position, or trying to avoid 13th and 14th position, it really becomes kind of quite a yo-yoing by week by week yo-yoing effect. But Steve, I think, and we'll talk a lot about this later tonight, the mid-season transfer windows is going to have a very, very big impact on who gets relegated and who survives relegation, don't you think?
Yeah, well, we saw on Friday night the depth that the Bentley Greens had to bring on off the bench in comparison to what St Albans had available to them. The likes of Gol Mabratu coming on as a last-minute sub, and I think Avondale didn't even see any minutes. So they've got some really good attacking talent in their disposal. Lucas Derrick also coming off the bench, and it's those clubs that can bring on game changers against teams that have only got maybe a few young kids on the sidelines. Those teams down the bottom that makes all the difference. And I think last week that's why we predicted Bentley Greens to get themselves out of the relegation situation.
Yeah, Mark, let's have a look at some of those the arrivals at the mid-season transfer window. We've got 3 pages of graphics to get through, so we'll let you look at the first one.
Yeah, Avondale were the stars of the show in the transfer window, really, to bring in a player like George Mells and George Ott as well in the mid-season transfer window is unheard of. Usually, you don't sign star players in that window. And Mells was excellent coming off the bench on Friday night. I think he'd be starting next week, really, because he changed the way Avondale were playing as soon as he came onto the pitch. So yeah, massive work done by Avondale in that window. Bentley Greens, like Steve just mentioned, there's a fair few decent signings there that they needed desperately.
Deuce looks like a really good find. A player, he's come out of the Werribee area. He's been at Melbourne City, and then he's been with Rick Marchioli up at the Jets. His dribbling game is outstanding, and opposition defenders are going to have a handful stopping him.
Yeah, and that's the pulling power that Marchioli's got. Really, he's able to bring these young talents that he's worked with across the Bentley, and I think they'll be safe now. Their defensive record is much better than the teams that are around them, so I think they'll be okay. Even Dandenong Thunder made some decent signings. Jay Davies signed at the start of the season, but his permanent residency hadn't come through, so they weren't able to register him for the first half of the season. But yeah, there's a few players that have played there before, Maker and Luke Pavlou as well. Green Gully did some decent business too, with Mohammed Adam coming across from Port Melbourne and Danny Kim from South Melbourne. So 2 decent signings to add depth to their squad as well.
Steve, let's have a look at page 2 of the mid-season transfers, starting with the Heidelberg United.
Yeah, it was good to have a look at Heidelberg last night, and all 4 of those names mentioned there were all impressive in some ways last night. Yes, admittedly, Pierce Clark did make that error that did end up costing them the game, but his shot-stopping ability is, I would say, on another level from a lot of the keepers in NPL Victoria. He saved shots last night with his chest, with his wrist, with his feet, all kinds of body parts at very close quarters. Jamal Ali, I was a big fan of watching him at Altona Magic last season, the way he gets the ball. I mean, he can be a liability because he gets the ball and just tries to turn defense into attack, and he might leave you exposed. But I love watching players that take the game on like Ali does. Very impressive. Big fan of Adara as well. 7 goals to him for Altona last season. It's hard to believe that he was at a club, a bit lower down like Mill Park. No disrespect to Mill Park.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Steve. I couldn't believe that he was in Mill Park.
Yeah.
I didn't know what happened to him, but I thought he was excellent last season. I remember he scored against the Knights last year when we played against them. He was unbelievable.
Yeah, he's a very hard player to play against. I don't know his numbers from what he did at Mill Park, but it's surprising that a player of his quality. He came in and looked the part last night. It was his starting debut for the club, and he looked very good. Amir Abdullah, he came off the bench last night too, and he's had some time over in Tallinn in Estonia. He's been at Lalor more recently, but he's another player who is very good on the dribble. He's in wide areas, very hard to defend against, very quick, can go either way quite quickly. So looking forward to watching Heidelberg and those names there. Mark, you got the Hume City players there.
Yeah, just on Heidelberg signings as well. For that's excellent business. Jamal Ali, I've followed him for the last couple of years, and they get a bit of a fallout of Altona Magic in the preseason and hadn't played at all up until signing for Heidelberg. So I think he's one of the best centre backs in the competition. So massive work by Heidelberg. But Hume City, well, a massive exodus of a lot of starting 11 players and players that had been there for a while. So they brought in Berhan Alabol from Moreland City, who's had a good season. Joshua Golevsky from Canberra. Jackson Riley, who was in goals, saved the penalty on debut last night. And he had a decent game too, especially in the last 10 minutes, saved about 2 or 3 chances from Moreland. And Evan Waldrop from, I don't even know how to say that club.
AC Syracuse Pulse.
There was another signing that they made from Canberra as well that they made, and they announced on Friday that he's already departed. So something went wrong there.
Something not, yeah. Where is AC Syracuse Pulse, gents? Anyone heard?
That's an American team. It's an American team in New York.
American team in New York. Well, there you go.
Powerhouse team by the South.
This is good live radio, isn't
it? It is absolutely. That's interesting. Melbourne Knights. Well, they've signed 2 players, and we've seen these players in action in recent weeks. Lars Cananda came on in the Doherty Cup playoff last week against Northcote City. He's been signed from Werribee City. It's a shame we haven't got Craig on tonight. He'd tell us a bit more about Lars Cananda. But Ben Collins, formerly of Western United, he came on. He did really well on Friday night, Mark.
Yeah, he was the man of the match for me, to be honest. He started on Friday night, and he was superb. And that partnership that Collins and Josh Phelps are going to form, they're going to be very, very hard to break down, Melbourne Knights, because they've got 2 very, very good centre-backs playing next to each other.
And finally, we've got Liam Baxter, who's come from Baxter.
Is that a typo or is that a legitimate Liam Baxter from Baxter?
I mean, this is all according to the football for the Football Victoria website and officially that they put up there. But is that a typo, guys? Anyone?
Don't know.
We don't know. Look, let's move along to the third page over Leaf now. So Moreland City signing Liam Baxter, which sort of almost tells me that they're resigned to the fact that they will be playing in NPL 2 next year. North Geelong, they've signed a couple of unknown or several unknowns. Abdikafa Urarashi from Chisholm United. Now, we do know Chisholm United is Oakley Cannon's sister club, and they play, in State 3 or something like that. So, obviously, they've come across this fella, may have been in the Australia Cup clash a month or so ago, maybe even longer now. Jack Hutchings from New South Wales side Blacktown Spartans. We've got Jacob Silver-Rain from Eastern Lions in NPL 2 and Cameron Sherry from Werribee City in NPL 2. Bit interesting that if they're trying to survive in NPL, that they're signing players from below them. But it's always been hard to attract players to Geelong. Steve, we know numerous North Geelong and Geelong coaches have lamented trying to attract players down the highway is very, very difficult. The money's not there. I guess the resources aren't available like some of the Melbourne clubs. But yeah, it'll be interesting. They've obviously signed these 4 players with a view of I guess the word surviving in NPL. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's hard to know what's the plan there. A lot of those players are from clubs that are over on the eastern side of Melbourne as well, with the exception of Cameron Sherry. I'm not too sure. I'm just cross-checking as well my references about Liam Baxter. He's indeed a striker from Baxter, who I think play in State League 4 as well. So
yeah.
That's quite a step up. So
Kevin Thuma's the new Whittlesea Rangers coach. He said he was at Baxter, was at Frankston before that, I'm sure. So thanks, Kev, for enlightening us there as well. Moving along. Oakley Cannons, Mark Kingsley Sinclair. He made his debut today, I think it's a 5th tier German outfit, according to our co-commentators today on the NPL stream.
Yeah, he's a Kiwi as well. So they've kept that one under wraps. Oakley, there was no announcement about that. So I'm sure he's a talented player. A lot of players that come over from New Zealand tend to do well in NPL Victoria.
Steve, Port Melbourne, Troy Ruthven. Did he play on the weekend?
Yeah, Troy started in the central midfield last night, and they're a little bit short because obviously they've lost George Melville. So the idea is that Troy can come in and return to his old club and replace him. They were a bit short because I think they had a couple of players, including Courtney Perkins. I'm trying to think another one of the central midfielders have both picked up 5 yellow cards in the previous game and was suspended. Fletcher McFarlane got a little injury niggle in that one. But the young boy actually that came in and did well there is almost like a new signing because he's only coming out of the junior system. As I mentioned, Dylan Leonard was really good in central midfield, as was Mark a bit further up the field. So maybe they'll be looking for some good young talent there. They haven't been too busy in the transfer market, Port Melbourne, but we've seen in the underage groups they've been dominating this season. So there might be where they look to bolster their squad from for the rest of the season after they have lost a couple as well, as we mentioned. Losing, one of the strikers, Mo Adam, to Green Gully. So speaking of strikers, South Melbourne picking up 2 attacking players as well. Mark, your thoughts on Yagub Mustafa and Luka Ninkovic?
I think Mustafa's a great signing for them. He'll definitely suit the way South Melbourne play. It's a good pickup, and I thought he was not bad at Hume City as well. Luka Ninkovic, I'm not sure about that one. Hasn't played too much in the last couple of years, and I'm not sure he's the type of striker that will fit in for South Melbourne. But then when you look at the market at this time of the year, there's really not that much around. So that does add a bit of depth to their squad.
That is a good point, and maybe that is exactly what they're trying to do, go for a little bit of depth. Before we look at St Albans, another one of our colleagues, Alex Sivkarovsky, big cheerio to Alex. He's tuning in as well, and he makes a comment: if North Geelong play like they did against Gully on Friday, they will survive this season. Very unlucky to not come away with a draw. And that's an interesting point. And we will talk about next week's games shortly. But before we do that, let's talk about St Albans Saints. Some big name players there signing. Steve, Ajak Du, formerly of Western United. Can he make a bit of a difference? Because you did commentate Friday night's game, and they just really struggled to look like they were going to score all match.
Yeah, that's right. So they've really strengthened their defence there with Ajak Du. He came in and looked excellent, really. He looked really, really good. And they were out without Chris Dibb, who was not playing through suspension. They were sort of playing with a bit of a makeshift defence. They'd put Zach Thomas at right back. He's largely played as a central defender. He had a badly dislocated shoulder a couple of weeks back, so he's just coming back from that. And Sean Timmins, who normally plays as the left back, was playing as a central defender. So they were trying to reshuffle a bit. Justin Mickliffe, another one of their new signings, was playing as the left back. He's a right footer, though. Very creative player further up the field. He tried to get forward a bit more as they could. Dylan McGlade's another creative player. James Kaperanowski, he comes in as the backup keeper option. But they really need to pick up a striker to replace George Ott, and they had Fabrizio trying to lead the line and trying valiantly, but they weren't able to create those chances that come to them. Last time I saw them play live, when they beat Hume 3-0, and George Ott, whether he's scoring or not, he's bringing other players into the game and creating those chances. And without someone like that, I think playing on that St Albans pitch, they've got a bunch of home games to come. They've got another 4 in a row to come now immediately. He needs someone like a George Ott who can be a bit of a handful for the defenders, even if he's not scoring the goals, to bring other players in the wide areas and in behind.
Yeah, that's going to be the big problem for St Albans, indeed, in the run home. Guys, we're going to take a very short break. When we return, we've got our guest for tonight, Melbourne Knights coach BEN CAHN, ready to join us, and he'll be talking to us, as we said, on the Football Out West show about the NPL Victoria season as we start to head towards the finals, the Australia Cup draw, and we'll also be talking about the mid-season transfers and how it may affect his club. So don't go away, folks. Straight after this, it's time to talk NPL Victoria football with our coach, with our guest for tonight, Melbourne Knights coach BEN CAHN. Don't go away.
Carpentry by NJT is based in the western suburbs and has many years of experience to assist you in sourcing any and all of your carpentry needs. Carpentry by NJT are great supporters of local soccer clubs in Melbourne's western suburbs, including ambitious State League One outfit Sydenham Park Soccer Club. Home Builders Corp, meanwhile, is a Melbourne-based construction company by the same owners with more than 15 years' experience. Home Builders Corp specialises in new homes and unit developments. With attention to detail, they work to the highest standard to satisfy their customers with a very quick turnaround. For further details about how either Carpentry by NJT or Home Builders Corp can help you, contact owner-manager Nick on 0410 576 018 or via email at nick@homebuilderscorp.com.au. Carpentry by NJT and Home Builders Corp are the proud major sponsors of the Football Out West show.
Welcome back to the Football Out West show, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome back to the Football Out West show our guest for tonight. He's the coach of the Melbourne Knights, BEN CAHN. And Ben, welcome to the show, and how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Sorry, having all sorts of technology troubles tonight.
We're talking about technology issues at the moment with the streams that seem to be besotting NPL Victoria. But on Friday night, and Mark was there at that game. It was Avondale FC Avondale 1-1 draw. How did you see that game? First of all,
look, it was certainly eventful. Lots of feeling, lots of emotion. But look, there's no doubts that Avondale are a top side. I think they're probably up there with the most difficult in the competition to play against. It's so hard to sustain any pressure against them, and it's so hard to get out of your own half against them. If you'd offered me a point before the game, I probably would have taken it. But having said that, being 1-0 up and defending well and really not giving him too much, we were obviously disappointed to have only come away with a point. And I think, let's say some of the decisions that led us to that point were probably questionable, and we're obviously a little upset at how some of those played out. I'll say it for you, Ben. It was never a penalty. I know you can't say it, but I'll say it for you. Yeah, and maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but Mitch had one exactly the same up the other end earlier, and then there was the handball in the box as well, and then there was the last man on Bramwell, and it was 100% red card. Yeah, and probably maybe ones that get missed by the neutral, but when you're sat in one bench, you pick up a lot of the throw-ins, and the first tackle of the game, he gave a yellow card to Joey Franic, and here's the footage. Like that set a strange tone. But I thought there was a strange booking as well. Yeah, and look, that's football, and we make a big point of knowing that there are things that are out of our control in games, and what we'll reflect on is how we what we have to do from here on in, which is make sure that we start to put a run together to secure finals. And if we get if we end up getting into the finals and playing Avondale, we need to make sure that we're prepared to find ways to try and control a bit more of the game against them.
Well, Ben, we're looking forward to seeing the next time that you guys do battle with Avondale, and we fancy it might be a finals lineup that will be very exciting to see. But a lot of the coaches I've been speaking to over the weekend have just said that this mid-season transfer window has just completely turned up the intensity. The training sessions have been supercharged. Everyone wants to hold on to their spot in the team. I know you guys have had a thick run of fixtures at the moment, but how have you seen that last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think anytime you bring in good players into a squad, it definitely brings a new dynamic and gives everybody some energy and gives it a lift. Look, we probably haven't been as active as some of the other clubs. It's been hard for us with the PPS because we made a lot of changes earlier in the year. So you sort of need that second and third year for players to lose their 15 points and become 10-point players before you can make big changes mid-season. So yeah, a bit hamstrung by the PPS, but really happy with the two boys we brought in. Anton is obviously top scorer in NPL 2. He brings us a different dynamic. He was fantastic against Northcote in his first start midweek. And Benny Collins is very experienced for such a young man, physically very strong, technically accomplished, and he's a really good human as well. He's taken really well to the dressing room. The boys really like him. I think he's going to be a big player for us on the run home.
Ben, I thought you coached really well on Friday night. Obviously, you had a hope that you were going to score early so you could change your formation a little bit and stifle the way Avondale were going to come at you. I thought it worked really well. And to manage the squad as well during the week, I thought, just both games and the whole week you handled really, really well. Can you just explain how difficult it has been? I've been at the club in that situation before where there's just game after game after game after game, and the squad you've got isn't the strongest depth-wise compared to some of the other teams. Just explain how difficult it is to continually have to play so many games.
Yeah, I think unless you're really in the thick of it and you're day to day with the players, it's really difficult for people to understand how tough that is. Last week we were together 5 nights for the week, right? And that's fine when you're a professional footballer, but when you're working for those 5 days, and the range of work that they do varies so much, and they all carry pressure in their own jobs and have their own families. And we had them in 5 days last week because we had the 2 games, 2 sessions, and obviously the Australia Cup draw. It's quite intense. It's very demanding on their bodies and their energy. You could see in the Port game after we played them 3 days after the Yarraville Cup game, we just couldn't get going, and that was, those 11s were almost the same bar a couple of changes, and you could see that the effect it had. And we played Northcote in the week, and we were able to make a lot of changes with the 2 signings we brought in and some players back from injury, and that really helped. So, but to then back up against Avondale a few days after, who, if you're not physically at your best and you're not running and you're not tracking and you're not doing all the small things that make a difference, they can just take the game away from you in seconds. And I guess the thing that I was happiest with was that the boys just dug in, and I won't say who, but there were boys in there that were battling some niggles and some injuries that may have other players may have pulled out with, and they pushed through and they showed such strength and character to hang on and get that result.
Is that why
seven games a month at this level is really tough. Most it's 5 max usually at this level. 7 takes its toll. So, but we want to be competing in everything. We, the playing group and the staff, we had a discussion. We don't want to play the 21s and get knocked out of cup competition. We want to win, and I think it's important for a big club and an ambitious club to be seen to be going as far as they can in every competition. And obviously, it's put a strain on our league form. We know that, but we're still in the race for finals, and we believe if we can get there, we can win it. Still in the race for the Australia Cup, and we're still going in the Doherty. So we need to just manage that squad well and see how far we can go.
Is that what
Mark, you're going to say something
during the game, Ben, because you were so heavy-legged probably? I noticed that the switch to the back 5 as soon as you went 1-0 up, and then probably felt like the momentum had shifted a little bit and went back to your usual formation in the second half. But was that the reason behind it?
A few reasons. Zinni and Xander Guy are fantastic out wide. The fullbacks get forward as well, and it's a lot to ask of any fullback to defend against Avondale. So, you know, I thought the game was quite even early on, but you could see in that sort of last 15 of the half that we started to tire, and you know, they got a lot of joy on both sides. Not anybody's fault, just the way the game panned out. Yeah. So we tried to give a little bit more protection to see the half out. Also, by doing that, it allowed us to bring Gian Albano inside a little bit more, which gave us a different type of outlet to try and counter and hurt them through the middle. In the way it panned out, we didn't necessarily, it didn't eventuate that way, but the thought was there. And we, you know, the halftime window gave us a chance to recharge and go again and try and press high and play our usual way. And even before their goal and probably even after the goal, really, the game just defaulted into us having to sit deep. We just didn't have the legs and the freshness to really go after them. I think if we'd gone and tried to press as high as we usually do, or if we tried to commit as many bodies forward, I think they would have done us. I think they would have opened us up. So we had to protect it and try and hit them on the counter.
Ben, you mentioned about player management or squad management, and especially now with so many different games, so much commitment required from the players. And look, we're now into the business end of the season. Does your off the field, or should I say at training tracks and away from the match day, does your approach now towards training and match day preparation, does it start to change a little? Does the intensity back off a little bit? Do you try and mix things up? What do you do to keep the squad fresh and prepped and primed, ready for the contests ahead?
Yeah, we just make sure that at the right times and where we have opportunity to do so, we allow a lot of rest and recovery. But you know, there's a lot of detail and planning that goes into the loading of the sessions, and that's from day one all the way through until the last game of the season. And basically, we just manage each week with what it demands. You know, this week we don't play a midweek game, so we've given them the weekend off. We'll come back in tomorrow. We'll make sure that tomorrow's focus is on recovery and regeneration, and then we go hard for the rest of the week, and we push them and we try and grow and learn and improve and see if we can make the team better, and hopefully that shows when we play on the weekend.
And Ben, just you mentioned earlier on the signing of Ben Collins. From what we were hearing, he might have been, when you were looking at him, he might have been about 4 weeks away. There was some word that he might have been a little bit away from his best or full fitness. Is that the way that you see it as well? And has he got a lot of improvement in him towards the end of the season for that reason? Yeah, look, it's a conversation that we've had with Ben, is that, had we have signed him pre-season, we would have periodized him differently and managed him and tried to progress him like we do with everyone. But if we were to do that now, he wouldn't be playing until 2-3 games to go. So it wouldn't have been a worthwhile signing. So when we signed him, we had the chat. Are you ready to get chucked in at the deep end and see where you land?
He was superb on Friday night, I thought, Ben. He was really good.
He's very good. He was good when he came on against Northcote too. He's been really good at training. The boys really like him. He's a good character, good footballer. Really happy with him.
The Lions FC in the Australia Cup draw. Sure, you had a smile on your face when that draw came out. It's an old foe for you, but probably a blessing in disguise for the Knights, because at least you'll know them inside and out.
Yeah, look, I've had a lot of games in the last 5 years against Lions. I think we, obviously played them twice a year in the league, and I think we played them in every final series for 5 years. We beat them in the 2 semis, and we lost them in the 3 grand finals. So yeah, an opponent I know very well, a club that's, look, rivalries aside, Lions are a very, very strong club. Good people running the club the whole way through, good processes, good resources. Traditionally they get themselves up for big games, whatever competition it's in. And, I've got no doubts of, what a big fixture it is. And it's going to be a big night for everybody involved.
Yeah, if we go through the fixtures there involving the Victorian clubs, Oakley Cannons coming up against Melbourne City FC, the Melbourne Derby. Wow, that's going to be a big one, a big game indeed. We've mentioned the Melbourne Knights at home to Lions FC, expecting a huge crowd for that. Obviously, we don't know exact dates and times and all of that kind of stuff, but that's still to be determined. Steve, Goulburn Valley Suns and RPL Leichhardt. What a festival of football that is going to be in Shepparton.
Yeah, long trip for RPL Leichhardt. I'm not sure what their logistics will be to get to Shepparton, but they're doing very well, I understand, in the NPL New South Wales. So there'll be a tough assignment for the Suns, but on home turf, they've been hard to beat, knocking off, the likes of some of the NPL top-tier sides in Victoria, of course. So very exciting to see how the Suns go, not only in that game, but also in their home Doherty Cup semi-final against Heidelberg United as well. And looking at the next fixture there, Northcote City hosting A-League and one of the powers of the Australia Cup, one of the most successful teams in the competition, Adelaide United. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to play that at John Cain or not. I hope they can, but I think last time they had a home game in this competition, it was played elsewhere. And then Heidelberg United, they drew a trip away. They're one of the very few teams to do so, but given Olympic Village is out of action, that's probably not a bad thing for the boys to get a trip up to sunny Brisbane to warm up this time of year.
Yeah, they'll go up to Moreton Bay United. So that's definitely something to look forward to. But something else to look forward to, Ben, is this weekend, the big Croatian derby for you guys coming up against North Geelong down at Alco Park. On Sunday, 3 p.m, something a bit different for North Geelong. But as part of this, there's going to be a big, North Geelong have already announced it, but a big heartbeat of football festival. Andy Pascalides, famous Andy Pascalides from the NSL days and a real media personality from Sydney. He is bringing down his Heartbeat of Football roadshow, and there'll be more about that in tomorrow night's Game of Two Halves podcast, where we will probably have Andy Pascalides on the show to talk about that. So do stay tuned for that. But as far as on-field matters, Ben, that's going to be a tough game. North Geelong are desperate. And the last time they were involved in a Croatian derby against the sister club down at Alco Park, they recorded a win, 1-0 against St Albans, their only home win at Alco Park. So it's a tough game, and one of those sort of games that, if you're not on your toes, it could prove to be a very tricky and costly one for the Knights.
Yeah, look, they're a good side, and I think that they're obviously desperate to stay up, and as you get into the back end of the season, every fixture means something. There's not a chance that we take anybody lightly, and we, as I said before, it's really just about us focusing on making sure that we're ready this week. But no doubts that it's going to be a big game. We know how much it means to them. We'll go there with full respect for them, and we'll be very, very hungry to turn our league form around and try and make sure we take some steps to securing finals football.
And Ben, following that fixture, you've got the Oakley Cannons in the Doherty Cup semi-final the following Wednesday night. Fortunately, as you said, this week is a midweek free fixture week for you. But the Oakley Cannons, you've had 2 draws with them this season. There'll be no draw on the night, obviously. Did you watch them today, and how do you think they're travelling?
Haven't watched them today. I took the day off football today. You guys are the only ones that have had my time today.
Privileged.
But
absolutely
course,
privileged. Thank you.
Of course, I will go back and watch them. And look, Oakley are fantastic. To be honest with you, the 3 sides above us, you can see in the points gap and how they've opened up from the rest of the league, how strong they are. Oakley are every bit in that mix, especially with their result today. Our 2 games against them have both followed similar patterns. They were much better than us in the opening half an hour, and we were the team that came home stronger and looked like we were going to win it. So I think for us, it's important to make sure that we stay in the game, and that we're in touching distance of them as that last half an hour comes around. And if we have full belief that we can go on and win it.
And finally, Ben, how have you adjusted to Melbourne? Nice and cold and miserable and a bit different to Queensland, isn't it?
It's been a challenge actually. It's a far away from Queensland, and I tell you what, Summer Street's about 10 degrees colder than everywhere else in Melbourne as well. You think it's a cold day when you leave home, and then you get to Summer Street and you go, shit, I need some more layers here.
That's very true.
Well, Ben, tell you what, it's a challenge for us Victorians. Let me tell you this, and let alone for people who have just come from Queensland. But on that note, mate, thank you very much for really brightening up our Sunday evening, and we're very privileged and honoured that you allowed us to be to come into our episode, our show on a day off today.
No worries.
Thank you very much for that. Wishing you all the best for the season that lies ahead.
No worries. Thanks, guys. Speak to you soon.
Thanks, Ben. All the best.
Good on you. That's Ben Cahn, the coach of the Melbourne Knights. Folks, we're going to take a very short break. We'll have a quick look. Before we do that, actually, let's have a look at the fixtures coming up for NPL Victoria, and then we're going to take a short break. And when we return, it's time to look at the other NPL divisions. St Albans Saints at home to Port Melbourne on Friday night, the only Friday night fixture. Then we got 4 Saturday fixtures. Avondale at home to Dandenong, Thunder, Moreland City at home to Green Gully, Bentley Greens hosting the Oakley Cannons, and Altona Magic at home to Heidelberg United. Then on Sunday, North Geelong taking on Melbourne Knights down at Alco Park, and South Melbourne hosting Hume City at McIver Reserve, and hopefully they'll fix up that scaffolding issue.
Hello, McIver Reserve. Let's get a scaffold in there for next Sunday. Let's do it.
Absolutely. We're going to take a break, folks. We are running behind time, and it's NPL 2 Victoria straight after this break. Don't go away.
Carpentry by NJT is based in the western suburbs and has many years of experience to assist you in sourcing any and all of your carpentry needs. Carpentry by NJT are great supporters of local soccer clubs in Melbourne's western suburbs, including ambitious State League 1 outfit Sydenham Park Soccer Club. Home Builders Corp, meanwhile, is a Melbourne-based construction company by the same owners with more than 15 years' experience. Home Builders Corp specialises in new homes and unit developments. With attention to detail, they work to the highest standard to satisfy their customers with a very quick turnaround. For further details about how either Carpentry by NJT or Home Builders Corp can help you, contact owner-manager Nick on 0410 576 018 or via email at nick@homebuilderscorp.com.au. Carpentry by NJT and Home Builders Corp are the proud major sponsors of the Football Out West show.
All right, welcome back to the Football Out West show, and a big thanks to our major sponsors, Carpentry by NJT and Home Builders Corp, for making it all possible. But it's time to now have a look at the NPL 2. We've maybe run a bit over time on the NPL top tier, but the results from the weekend in the Chaos League, this exciting league, still one game to go, of course. But on Friday night, it was a Jacob Alexander strike that was all that was needed for Dandenong City to get past Melbourne City, with George Lambat already sent off in that match. There was a very important win for Brunswick Juventus, 2-0 over struggling Pascoe Vale. A last-gasp Rob Stambolziev goal as Lucas Portelli was sent off as Preston Lions 2, Lang Warren 2 at BT Connor. So another draw for Preston. The Eastern Lions Northcote City game, that was postponed. Brunswick City 1, Kingston City 3. They're probably true to form with that one. Kingston City doing very well at the top. Brunswick City not so much. A bit of a thriller. I had the privilege of seeing Manning United Blues in person at Preston a couple of weeks ago. They were very impressive the way they knocked the ball around, and they had a 3-3 with Western United, and big game to come tomorrow night. And hopefully Craig Filer can get back up off his deathbed and get to the Veneto club tomorrow night, because Bulleen Lions and Werribee City and Werribee, they really want the points in this one.
They do. Mark, if we have a look at the ladder now for NPL 2 Victoria.
Yeah, Kingston City's broken away. Finally, someone wants to take that top spot in NPL 2. Western United with an opportunity to break away with them, but just couldn't get it done today. And Preston with another draw on 34 points. With 6 games to go, they need to start getting back on the winners board if they want to climb into those promotion spots. And Dandenong City not far behind either in 4th spot on 33 points. But Brunswick Juventus is resurgent form has seen them move a little bit clear off that relegation zone now as well. And Pascoe Vale's in a bit of trouble there, but they did make some good signings themselves in the mid-season window. I saw they brought Nick Edish from Heidelberg, the Heidelberg goalkeeper, over to Pascoe Vale.
Good signing.
Yeah, very good signing.
If we look at the games coming up this weekend as well, on Friday night we've got 2 games happening. Brunswick Juventus at home to Preston Lions, a CB Smith reserve. Northcote City at home to Brunswick City. And then on Saturday, Western United taking on Melbourne City. That's at the City Vista Pavilion. Lane Warren taking on Dandenong City. And then the Manningham Blues taking on Werribee City at Pattis Reserve. On Sunday, Kingston City taking on Pascoe Vale. It just does not get any easier for Pascoe Vale, Mark, even though they've got, as you said, an NPL quality keeper. They're going to need every bit of that skill and defensive capabilities against Kingston City. They're a tough team. They're really looking good at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, Kingston City is probably the form side of the competition.
Yep. All righty, moving along now. Steve, let's look at NPL 3 now.
Yeah, so the results are in from the weekend, round 16, this was, of the NPL 3. And Ballarat City, who've been struggling, they got an important 3-1 win over Beau Morris. Burundara Carey Eagles, they kept some good form going, 4-2 over Doveton. North Sunshine Eagles bounced back to form with the 2-1 win away at Nunawading City. An important 1-0 win for Caroline Springs George Cross over a Geelong Soccer Club that's been bolstered by a few signings. Oh, both of those clubs have been, to be fair, in the mid-season window. Essendon Royals 1, Goulburn Valley Suns 2. So a good win on the road for the boys from Shepparton, the cup specialists this season. And just the result just in from this afternoon, it was Melbourne Victory 2, Box Hill United 1. So Melbourne Victory keep on their winning ways and they're looking very good in this NPL 3 competition, guys.
Yeah, looking at the ladder now, the NPL 3 ladder. Melbourne Victory on top. They're really running away with things. But Caroline Springs, George Cross, they've got a game in hand against Nunawading City. So they're at the moment 5 points behind Melbourne Victory, but a victory over the Nunawading City side will see them within 2 points. And they've picked up Caleb Mikulich from North Geelong, who last year was the NPL 2 Golden Boot. So he's now dropped down to NPL 3. So that's going to be a big, big signing. They've got a real target man that can boot quite a few goals just off his own boot there. Goulburn Valley Suns, they're in third spot. Burundara Carey Eagles in fourth spot with 26 points. They're followed by Nunawading City on 25, North Sunshine Eagles 25, and Doveton on 23. So the real battle there for those promotion spots, and as Brenton Ray also makes a point, 11th and 12th in NPL 2 at end of the season are in the relegation playoff against the 3rd and 4th from NPL 3. So even if teams finish in the 3rd or the 4th position, they would still be able to contest that promotion playoff. But at the other end of the competition standings, I guess it's the battle for that second last spot. Ballarat City at the moment, they did win on the weekend, but they're 8 points, 7 points adrift of second last Beau Morris. But then herein lies the very, very close contest, if you like, for that second last position, or to avoid that second last spot. Beau Morris on 15, Geelong on 16, Essendon Roars on 17, and then Box Hill United at the moment in 8th position, and they find themselves 3 points off the relegation zone. So it's very, very well. We do call the second division NPL 2 the Chaos League, Steve. But tell you what, that NPL 3, it has just as much intrigue about it as we count down the last few rounds of the season.
It does, and with those playoffs that Brenton Ray mentioned, there's just even a bit more chaos potential for the end of the season, although the NPL 2 teams should be able to back themselves, you would think. But we'll look at the fixtures for next week in the NPL 3, and they're happening, the bulk of them on Saturday. Beau Morris welcoming Essendon Royals on Saturday at 3 o'clock. Also at the same time, Goulburn Valley Suns will entertain Box Hill United. Doveton will welcome Ballarat City to Waratah Reserve. Burundara Carey Eagles hosting Nunawading City at the Wilcox Field at the Carey Sports Complex.
That should be a good game.
That should be a good game. Geelong back on home soil at Stead Park, where they host North Sunshine Eagles in the 6 p.m. Saturday evening match. And on Sunday, it is a very exciting match. This is first versus second, Melbourne Victory against Caroline Springs George Cross at Epping Stadium at 3 o'clock. Mark Sultana in the comments mentions that Caroline Springs George Cross have secured 8 wins in a row. Can they make it 9 against Melbourne Victory? That's going to be a very good match to see, that one. Hopefully, if you get along and make a good afternoon of that one.
Big game, that one. Definitely a showdown, a huge showdown in the making. We're going to take a very, very short break. When we do return, we're almost there, folks. We're certainly approaching stoppage time. We'll have a look at the NPLW and also cast our eye on the VPLW as well. That's time for the women's football. Don't go away, folks.
Welcome to Anytime Fitness in Werribee.
The club with the most supportive, welcoming and friendliest members and staff.
Whether you're a first-timer, gym goer or just an everyday person, we are here for you.
A recently renovated facility offers you everything you need to get started with your health and fitness goals.
Our club offers brand new state-of-the-art cardio equipment, an amazing functional zone for group classes, a lifting zone, and really does cater for every single person. So don't miss out. Come see us in club to redeem this offer.
Welcome back to the Football Out West show. And before we look at the women's side of things, the NPLW and the VPLW, Steve, you've got some news as well that was broken earlier tonight.
Yeah, yesterday, I think, was the signing Marco Tilio off to Celtic. So we've lost and we've lost Aaron Moy. A year or so ago, we lost Tommy Rogic from Celtic, but there's still going to be an Aussie representative at Celtic, which is good to see. Marco Tilio's been signed. And when you look at some of his highlights videos that have been posted online this week for the Celtic fans to see, you realise how an exciting player he is. And it's going to be good to see how he goes at that level against those Scottish Premiership defences. What are your thoughts on that one, Mark?
Yeah, I think he'll do well over there. He's a very exciting talent. And look, I don't watch too much of the A-League, but I have seen Marco Tilio play, especially in the grand final. He was unbelievable despite the massive loss. But I think he'll actually get game time over in Celtic and do well.
Yeah, but the transfer fee, record-breaking, in excess of $2 million. And, well, I'll tell you what, the City Group, they're not short of a quid, but now they'll even have a lot more money as well. And certainly they've done pretty well. Aaron Moy also was a record at one stage, and he's now announced his retirement from football. So speaking of the transfer windows, a lot happening in that area. All right, let's talk about NPL women's, the latest round of results, and we've got the scores there. Now, interestingly, apart from one game which was postponed, all of the games, it was the away team that ended up winning and coming away with 3 points. You very rarely see that often happen, don't you, Steve?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Preston, a couple of goals from their star player, Torpy, but it wasn't enough because Burundara Kerry Eagles are a hard team to beat. Aquino is a fantastic player. She scored twice. There was also goals for Hayden, Margot Rabin, and Udez. So 5-2 win on the road there. Box Hill United doing a number on FB Emerging, 4-1. Barbieri with a couple of goals, Hiroshinen an own goal, Akado with an own goal. So a couple of unfortunate own goals by the FV Emerging girls. Busheris on the score sheet, though, for Emerging. South Melbourne, they've been going pretty well the back end of the season. Their New Zealand striker Taylor Christensen on the score sheet, Danielle Wise with a couple of goals, and Lawson as well. So a comprehensive win against Bayside. And then Calder getting the job done. Delaris with a spot kick, and Walsh Sato with the spot kick for Southern United, seeing them get the points there. And yeah, the table sees Burundara Kerry Eagles. They are doing exceptionally well they've come up from the VPLW, and who would have backed them to do so well? I suppose if you're in the know, there's certainly reason to believe it with the quality of players that they've got, as we mentioned with some of their goal scorers a moment ago, but they're doing fantastic.
Yeah, Southern United, the only team at the bottom likely to get relegated. They're struggling there, but that battle for the top 4 positions there in the NPL women's competition after round 16 is quite an intriguing one. Looking ahead to next week, we've got 2 games on the Friday night. Box Hill United hosting South Melbourne at Wembley Park, and then Football Victoria Emerging hosting Alamein at the Knox Regional Football Centre. On Saturday, Calder United hosting Burundara Kerry Eagles. That should be a really good game. That's at Keilor Park at 3 p.m. And then Bulleen Lions taking on Bayside United. Another good game because Bulleen Lions could really solidify their spot in the top 4. Or Bayside United can do the same there. Otherwise, it could be quite an interesting battle for that last spot there. And finally on Sunday, Preston Lions are hosting Heidelberg United on Sunday at BT Con Reserve, a real family-friendly time of 3 p.m. And in days gone by, the men's version of this game would have attracted thousands and thousands, particularly in the old NSL days. But This one sure is certainly going to attract a decent-sized crowd as well. Gents, we've, I think, got to the end of our show tonight. Mark, thank you very much for stepping into Craig's shoes and helping us out tonight. We really appreciated your company tonight.
No worries, guys. Always a pleasure to join this fabulous show of yours.
It's been a pleasure to have you, Mark. As you know, the Fabrizio Romano of NPL Victoria. He's got all the transfer information. He's got a cult following online, and he hears the stories before anyone else hears them. So, been great to have your company tonight, Mark. So, thanks very much, and thanks to you, TONCI, for putting in another stellar effort. And you've got some more commitments coming up this week where we can see you on the screen.
Yeah, that's right. Tomorrow night, the Game of Two Halves podcast. That's at 8 p.m. and that'll be simulcast live here on the Football Out West Show Facebook page. As we said, we'll be speaking to Andy Pascalidis about his Heartbeat of Football campaign that he's bringing down to Victoria as well. And I do believe he will be also operating that on Friday night at the St Albans Port Melbourne game at Churchill Reserve there as well. So we'll find out more information, more details about that in tomorrow night's Game of Two Halves. Quick cheerio out to Craig Filer. Hopefully he does get better. I'm sure he's tuning into this. He's normally in the comment section, but if he isn't, that must mean he's pretty sick. But we're wishing the big man all the very, very best, and hopefully he gets himself right for tomorrow's big game between Werribee City and Bulleen Lions at the Veneto Club, the NPL 2 clash, Monday night clash there tomorrow night. Thanks, folks, for being a part of tonight's show. We really appreciate it. We look forward to having your company again next Sunday night at 8 p.m. on the Football Out West Show. Good night, folks.
Good evening.